Dawson Rider Wiki.
Hey YouTube, Dawson Rider here with my review of Uchu Sentai Kyuranger episode 20. So this was a pretty solid episode. Again, I've broken record. This is like the 15 bazillionth time to be exact I've mentioned this, but I'm really pleased that Kyuranger's actually been able to keep up momentum, and we know for sure it's going to be continuing. But this was almost in a way a part 1 of 2 in the continuing saga of Stinger versus Scorpio. But basically Stinger confronted Scorpio without his Kyuranger stuff and used a technique from his race that basically they inject themselves with their own poison to gain strength, but they'll die for sure. And so it was like the conflict of that, and the whole story was, the base story of it was actually pretty cliche, of him wanting to take care of this problem on his own so his other friends were not hurt, like Champ, which is a pretty generic Sentai trope of one of them going off to do something on their own, and then they learn the lesson of, hey, don't do this on your own. So it wasn't anything revolutionary or something I was really wowed by, but it was at least entertaining, some solid stuff going on, just a little bit more reinforcement, fleshing out of the background of like how he used to protect him when he was little, and he gained strength to do that, but then he got corrupted by the power, which is kind of an interesting-ish way to go about it. Like, it's not a way I see, it's, like I said, it's not revolutionary, but it's not something you see all the time of this character was initially, like, protective of somebody and basically got strength to be protective, but then got corrupted by it. So it's not like it hasn't been done before, but it's not quite as cliche, but still a little bit cliche, if that makes any sense. And then another bit was that Scorpio basically broadcasted out to Earth like, hey, we wouldn't be attacking you if it wasn't for the Kyurangers on this level, which is not true pretty much, but so like they kind of got a mob mentality against the Kyurangers, so everyone's like, quick, make signs. And Kotaro was back and he wanted to help, and we got a brief glimpse of Champ and his eyes turning on after Kotaro left him. I'm really glad that he didn't revive in this episode. I'll get into that in a minute. But the reason I brought up Kotaro coming back right now was because, like, when the Kyurangers arrived back on Earth, he first confronted, like, the little mini mob of people going after him, and then they all went through, and it was kind of smaller scale than I thought. Like, not even so much about the group of people, but I thought that element of the episode was going to be more prevalent, but it wasn't. It was just kind of a short scene, and then the episode continued. Maybe it'll go into next week, I don't know, but something I wanted to bring up about that, which I thought was kind of funny, was that my two most hated characters in Toku right now, of like the current stuff, is like Lucky and M from X8, and like they both have had moments recently, not where I'm like, oh my god, I actually like them now, but it was like moments where I actually tolerated them and actually was kind of okay with them, and I just thought it was weird, and they were like a week apart. Like last week's was M's reforming his bond with Palad so that he could use the powers of Genius Gamer M, and this week it was Lucky, the way he handled the situation and going through the crowd, because like if someone was throwing rocks at them, seeing him get hit by a rock was pretty satisfying, but like one almost hit Kotaro and he stopped it, and I like how he said something like, just we're gonna save the Earth, just be quiet or something, and I just like the way it was delivered, because I assumed when Kotaro went there and Lucky showed up, he was going to say a bunch of really annoying Toku stuff and like high-pitched and be like that cartoon, and there was a bit of that, and he was saying cliche Toku stuff, but I was surprised about how much more not driven or serious he was. Like, it wasn't a joke, or it wasn't played for a, we're gonna do it cause Lucky, and it was actually just kind of a real-ish moment. Like, nothing amazing, but I just wanted to call it out because I'm like, wow, I actually am not hating you for this 1 second. But so yeah, that was an element of the episode, and it is kind of just an interesting situation, just because usually, like, the Sentai is either well known to the public and loved, or they're just the relationship between the public and the team isn't brought up all that much. So it's not very often that you have an interesting or a different situation like this, or like Gokaiger, where there's a different dynamic. But yeah, so that was a thing. And then after Scorpio initially beat Stinger, he poisoned him more to basically have him go berserk and fight against his friends. Also pretty generic stuff. But it was some nice moments for Kotaro, who's just a shocking anomaly of a Toku kid that doesn't annoy me. And also what was kind of neat is, like, when he was fighting Morphed, he didn't seem to be all that different, but like when he got knocked out of his morph or whatever, and he was fighting against Scorpio, he actually had some pretty good moves, and I like to think that was because he was training at the academy, so like he was pretty skilled, and there was actually some pretty cool scenes of him just in civilian mode fighting Stinger, I said Scorpio, it was like both sort of, but it was mainly Stinger because he was sending him after him and like putting the antidote in. Although I like how Lucky only hands him the antidote after he has a personal epiphany and like says his little Toku speech. But it was just kind of neat to see him actually have some good fighting moves, some good moments based on their relationship and all that stuff. And like, coming back to Champ, like the way he was basically in the episode twice when Kotaro left and he's like, oh, you're with me, and he took his Kyutama, which is like pivotal later when Stinger knocked it off and like it stopped him for a second because he remembered his friendship with him, which gave Kotaro the opening to give him the antidote. So that was kind of a nice little moment, I guess. Like then we just saw flashes of him later of his eyes turning on, and then like the scene right after that, or like one after that, was like the tail, Stinger's tail was coming at Kotaro. I think it was Stinger. I keep thinking that Scorpio was fighting him too, but a scorpion tail was coming at Kotaro, and it was like slow motion, and I thought for sure Champ was going to show up and knock it, but actually Kotaro just dodged it. So I thought that was really nice, because I thought for sure they were going to rush it and bring Champ back this week, but it was nice to actually see that Kotaro saved himself, and that we're saving Champ's storyline for probably next week, maybe, or the week after, because there's going to be a lot going on next week. But regardless, I'm glad they're saving it. There was a little funny Commander moment where he was like appreciating the enemy's teamwork when they were in the mecha battle, so that was funny. And then they cured Stinger at the end, obviously, and they're all kumbaya and they're ready to fight. And again, I was kind of surprised that like they didn't wrap it up in that few minutes, like even not like the whole story necessarily, like they take out Scorpio, but like, you know, didn't hit him enough that he ran off, and like their morph and running at each other basically ended the episode. So it was just kind of nice that they didn't try to rush things I thought they were going to rush, period. It's like next week looks like it'll be pretty pivotal. It might be the conclusion of this arc. I'm not sure, because there might be scans that tell you this. I haven't been paying as much attention to that lately. But I'm curious to see whether it's the definitive end of this arc, or it's like an end for now, or just kind of like before, a handful of episodes back where I thought we were going to be taking a break from it. But regardless, it looks to be pivotal. I'll just keep saying the word pivotal and it'll work. You know, conflict between them, and also it's the debut of Ho-Oh Soldier, so looks to be an exciting week, so I'm looking forward to that. But this is overall a pretty solid episode. Pretty cliche Toku Sentai stuff, but still pretty solid. I'd give it an 8. But anyway, until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. It's Dawson Ryder, signing out.